10 years after the death of the popular author Charles Dickens in 1870, his most recent home, Gad's Hill Place, was examined. One particular book was found within the cushions of the couch of where the author died. The book was confirmed to be the diary of the famous author. Many of the diary entries were worn out and the text was illegible, but a few of the entries were recovered. These are the few of the articles found within Charles Dickens' diary.
December 4th, 1821. Dear Diary, since this is my first entry, I think I shall take the time to introduce myself. My name is Charles Dickens, and I am currently 9 years old. I was born on February 7th, 1821, at Landport in Portsea, near Portsmouth, England. However, I now live in Chatham, in Kent. It is the most wonderful place I have ever been, and I wish I could live in Chatham forever. I live with my father and mother, John and Elizabeth Dickens. I have 5 siblings, my older sister Fanny, my younger brother Alfred and Frederick, and my younger sister Letitia and Harriet. I'm a small boy, but I absolutely love reading and writing. That's why I've started this diary. April 7th, 1824. Dear Diary, today has surely been one of the worst days of my 12-year-old life. I regret to say that I did indeed see this day coming. How I wished it would not come. However, it is now upon us. For as long as I can remember, my father had been in debt. He had to feed and take care of my 6 other siblings, as well as supporting my mother's widowed sister. My father had horrible spending habits and even employed 2 household maids. He soon resorted to borrowing money from family and friends. It was obviously inevitable that our father's debt would soon create mayhem. Moving to and from, forced into hiding by tradesmen demanding their unpaid loans. As I have seen it happen to many before, today my father was taken to Marshalsea, London's debtor prison, along with the rest of my family. How I wished it was not so, if only I could have the life my father aspired for, though that dream feels like a lifetime away. April 16th, 1824. Dear Diary, just as I believed things could get no worse, James Lammer, one of our family members by marriage, came and offered to get me a job at Warren's blacking factory, where Lammer works. To my surprise, my parents seemed more ecstatic than I'd ever seen them. I'm only a mere 12-year-old, yet my parents agree with no hesitation to let me work at a factory. I now have to live and take care of myself. My first week at the factory was far worse than I could ever imagine. I work long hours with the monotonous task of preparing black pots of shoe polish, on view to everyone through the big front window. The action of cutting the paper, covering the pot, tying the string, pasting the labels, engraved in my mind like a name on a gravestone. Warren's blacking factory is the most dismal and depressing place I have ever stepped foot in. It is old, filthy, and infested with rodents. However, as much as I detest Warren's blacking factory, it will never come close to the extreme ache of emptiness I get from the isolation while I sit in my small, lonely room. I barely have enough to eat, and I feel dread waking up every morning. I now know the hardships of the lower working class and have experienced so much. I feel I will never be the same again. May 13th, 1832. Dear Diary, I have tried many jobs thus far in my life. I have tried to be a reporter for the British press and work as a junior clerk for the legal firm of Ellis and Blackmore, and I am now working at the Mirror of Parliament, which my father works at. These jobs have taken me all over the dreary city of London, but none are quite my cup of tea. Nothing compares with the joy I get from writing and creating new worlds in my head. All these jobs are just so utterly boring.
August 17th, 1836. Dear Diary, upset at my job at the Parliament, I decided to pursue an acting career. I had always been drawn to the theater, so I pursued my dream as an actor in 1832. Unfortunately, this attempt was unsuccessful and my dream soon came to a close. However, soon after, I began my writing career. Under the pseudonym Boz, I submitted sketches, which appeared in the monthly magazine in 1833. All of my sketches were eventually put together in a book called Sketches by Boz. My, this makes me feel great, my first official novel as an author. Also, this year, on April 2nd, I got married to the wonderful Catherine Hogarth, the daughter of the great George Hogarth, the man who positively reviewed my sketches. Nothing could possibly go wrong at this moment. November 6, 1837. Dear Diary, life has been hard over the past year. My first son Charles was born this January, and I have been working tremendously hard over the past few months in order to support my family. I have wrote sequels to my sketches, and I've written my next novel, The Pickwick Papers. I feel that this has been one of my most funny and successful works with the characters Sam, Mr. Pickwick, and the Pickwick Club. The final installment was published this year in October, and the public loved it. Today I am writing to mark my place as a professional writer. September 15th, 1839. Dear Diary, my wife and I have recently moved twice. Currently, we live in Devonshire Street in Bloomsbury, but before we resided in Doughty Street, also in Bloomsbury. My newest daughter, Mary, has been born this March, and my wife and I are quite excited to be raising our two kids. We are soon expecting a third. This year, my newest book was also released. Oliver Twist is its name, and I feel that it will become a huge success. The novel incorporates many things that I've experienced as a reporter, such as murderers, pickpockets, and prostitutes. I hope that my writing career will continue on the path that it is on right now, and that I'll become a great writer. May 1st, 1843. Dear Diary, I am currently 32 years old, and I live in London. However, my family and I lived in America in 1842, and I had a reading tour. Many of the Americans recognized me and praised me as an author during the 6 months that I visited. During this period, I also visited Canada. However, during this period, I began to have second thoughts about the country. I strongly supported freedom, and seeing the sadness and slavery in this country made me very upset. I wrote my book, American Notes, in 1842, ranting on the apparent ignorance of the American people. This year I published Martin Chuzzlewit, about the same topics which got me many enemies in America.
October 7th, 1859. Dear Diary, I tried to write a novel more based on my life, but the idea of an autobiography reminds me of my humiliation during my days in the blacking factory. So, I wrote David Copperfield and Nicholas Nickelback closely based on my life. In the spring of 1859, my wife Catherine and I separated in our marriage, so I left to live at Gad's Hill's place. January 4th, 1861. Dear Diary, I have written many novels in these past few years. After I wrote David Copperfield, I wrote Dombey and Son, of which was about society controlled by commercial comforts rather than by social feelings. I then began writing many more novels such as Bleak House, Little Dorrit, Household Words, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations. In Little Dorrit, I incorporated some of my social experiences about the Marshley debtors' prison, which became a symbol of England's conditions. In Hard Times, I based my novel on industry of our society. In All Year Round, it contained many novels of my 20 years of writing, for the magazine displayed all my novels to the public. January 10th, 1864. Dear Diary, I am presently having a terrible relationship with my family. I just received news my son Walter had died in Chalcedon on New Year's Day from a ruptured aorta. I sent an inscription for my son's tomb, but my wife took my lack of sympathy deeply, for I did not come. So the least I could do was pay my son's debt. As time passed, I developed a relationship with Nellie Turnon and convinced her to become my mistress. Nellie Turnon was once an actress, but now she lives in a house near my home that I rented for her. January 12th, 1868. I finished my second tour to America even though my health was deteriorating. I was starting another reading tour. I spent months traveling to New York and Boston again to read many books as I can. I saw many changes in America that I was pleased about because there is less slavery within the country. I also had a banquet with the American press where I apologized to never denounce them again. Although at the end of the tour, I found my diet contained less of solid material, for my health was still deteriorating. June 9th, 1870. Dear Diary, these past few days were spent mostly on writing my next novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood. My life so far has not been that of the best, for my children are not turning out what I hoped them to be. They are too careless, for they think they have a life of luxury. My health has worsened ever since the Staplehurst rail crash in June 9, 1865, from the last 5 years ago. Yesterday, I suffered a stroke at my home. I feel that I will not survive much longer. I feel terrible and weak. However, I hope I can at least resume to finish my novel.